Many decide to become EFL teachers because they want the freedom of traveling abroad, working, doing something that they enjoy, and just living life to the fullest. Now, when we move abroad, sometimes we might experience something called social anxiety. So, in today's episode, I'm going to talk to Gabriela, who is a licensed psychologist. She has a master in psychology and 20 years of experience. And we'll be talking about social anxiety abroad and also a bit about anxiety as new teachers. Gabriela, as I was saying, is a licensed psychologist and she also provides online counseling to expats and globally mobile clients since 2018. Until now, she has supported over 350 people living abroad to cope with the challenges that international life brings or exacerbates. She was born in Chile. She's an Austrian citizen and works online based with clients worldwide while living a location independent life. Gabriela knows firsthand the complications and advantages of the expat journey, and she uses her experience and professional training to help her clients live purposeful and fulfilling international lives, building up their confidence, creating and maintaining meaningful relationships, and prioritizing their well being. In addition to her online counseling practice, she facilitates workshops on and offline dealing with the mental health concerns of living internationally. Gabriela supports her clients in Spanish, English, and German. So, let's see what Gabriela had to say. So, Gabriela, a few days ago, you reopened your doors to your membership. Tell us a bit about it.
Yes, the Badass Expat Society, BES, your membership too, Valentina. It's a place for expat women to grow, to get validation, to face and tackle the challenges that we as expat women have to face, and also to feel the support and the validation of a community who has lived similar experiences, because expat life is challenging. It is beautiful and it's very rewarding, but it's also very challenging. And not all people can understand what we go through, what we face as expats. So having that community is a place of, as I said before, validation and support. And we have a library, we have a lot of trainings also to face those challenges and predicaments like loneliness and guilt because we left and our parents are aging, or we feel lonely because we don't have any friends, or maybe anxiety, depression, burnout, etc. Everything is covered in the content library, and we have also calls twice a month with me, the masterminds or support group calls, and members can go there and also vocalize their challenges, the predicaments that they are facing. And me as a psychologist, 20 years of experience, I help them, but also the community helps and give them tips and tactics and strategies to face those challenges. We can also share our achievements and our successes. It is a place exclusively and especially designed for expat women. And I can't wait to see many of your audiences here in BES, in Panas Expat Society.
Yes, I hope they do join us if they struggle with many different things. And one of those things is actually social anxiety abroad, something that we're going to be covering today. Because many of language teachers or English language teachers, once they qualify, they decide to go and teach abroad, maybe have this gap year after university and just travel. Many language teachers also want to just have the freedom of traveling, doing something that they like, and also have the freedom of moving from country to country. Social anxiety is something that they face at one point sooner or later. Tell us a bit about this. What do they actually feel? What happens to us? Because I'm also an expat and I've been through this.
Okay, first and foremost, social anxiety is not something uncommon. It's very common. And anxiety is not only panic attacks, it's not only taking medication, it's not only being completely isolated. It has a process and it builds up, it grows with time, right? We have to be aware of the signs of it, but we can talk more about it later. But this is an important disclaimer that I wanted to say before, because we have a lot of prejudices about it. Like, no, I don't have any anxiety. I'm not crazy, or I can manage, right? But it is
Yeah.
a very important thing, and it is important to tackle it and to pay attention to the signs. We are going to talk about it later. So what is social anxiety? It is the fear of facing other people in groups or even one-to-one. And it is a fear, irrational fear, like we are going to feel ashamed or we are going to do something wrong. And it's very, very, very common between us expats or digital nomads, or your teachers are traveling around the world. Because when we're older adults, it is more difficult to meet people. It is more difficult to make new friends. It is more difficult to maintain friends because we have our set of prejudices, right? We know what we want. We know what kind of people, quote unquote, we like or we want to spend time with, right? And when we move abroad, when we are faced to usually many different people, many different personalities, we tend to isolate or pause and say, okay, this is too much. Let's take it slowly. And sometimes we take it too slowly. And we don't want to make the effort, emotional, even economical, but also social, to meet new people or to invest time in meeting new people, if you know what I mean, right? That's one thing, because when we are children, we just need to like the same band or the same video game or the same actor or whatever, and that's it, bond, and we are friends forever, right? But when we are adults, it's different, of course. So it's difficult to make friends. That's one important impact in our expat life. The second one is, and the most hurtful and the most painful to acknowledge, is this I called it devolving. When we are in a new country, we sometimes feel like a child, like a toddler, like the things that we used to solve very quickly and very easy in our home country are not that easy to solve or to face when we are in this new country. The language, even if it's the same language that we speak, native, or we are very fluent in that language of that country, there are things like social codes that are not, we're aware of them, but it's different to read about them than to face them. So when we are faced with that, it impacts our self-esteem. It has an impact in our self-image, and we become self-conscious about what we do, what we don't do, what we can do, what we can't do, if we talk too loud or low, or if the distance, the social distance. For example, I don't know how it is in Romania, but in Chile, we don't respect social distance that much. We hug new people, we kiss people that we don't know in the cheeks. And in a Nordic country or in a Central European country, I don't know, in the UK, they tend to shake hands and say wave, right? So those kinds of things are also a challenge to incorporate in our social contacts, right? So that also has an impact in our potential social anxiety.
You actually reminded me, during uni, I studied a year in France, and I studied in the north of France, in Lille, and that's where they kiss 4 times. Every
Oh.
time you meet someone, you kiss them 4 times on the cheeks, of course.
Mhm.
And I found it so strange, and it used to take so much time. You know, if 3 people met 4 people, then 15 minutes, it was just the kissing. And I found it very strange because you would have to kiss anyone. I didn't particularly like it, but well, you know, if everyone does it, you have to do it. So
Mhm.
yes, you know, we have these cultural things you were talking about earlier, and we also talked about this in one of the masterminds
Mhm.
in BES,
Mhm.
when I made a bit about my social anxiety. And, you know, I speak the language, and it's not the language the problem, because I know I'm not a native speaker. And, well, I can make mistakes because I'm not a native speaker, although I am an English language teacher. However, my problem is mostly cultural, approaching people, having small talk,
Mhm.
especially with parents at school. I sometimes fear I might say something that is not culturally appropriate
Mhm.
and I might make a fool of myself. So, in this case, I just prefer to not speak. So,
Mhm.
what can we do in these cases?
Okay, what you described is very common, but it's also very important to acknowledge, right? That we live with that
Yeah.
fear. Yeah, it sounds so dramatic, but it is fear, fear of rejection, fear of making a fool of ourselves, fear of
Yeah.
shame, of embarrassment, right? No, no, no. I prefer not to talk, or as you said before, smile and wave. And it is, yes, it is a safe space, right? Just not to talk or talk like the minimum or smile and wave. But it, if you may, it prevents the world to know who we are and all the beautiful things that we have to or we can give to, for example, to those parents or to new friends or to the kids if we're teachers or any social interaction. We are preventing them and depriving ourselves from that reward, right? So what can we do? There is a concept in psychology, I'm sure that you have heard of it, is exposure therapy, right? So it's like a spider. If you have a fear, an irrational fear to
Yeah.
spiders, you don't confront to the spider, you don't go and touch a spider, right? You begin to talk about the spider, you begin to watch photos about spiders, you begin to go to the forest or park or whatever, and you spot spiders, things like that, right? That is exposure therapy in a nutshell. So this is the same. We start not to be completely ourselves all the time at once, but we taste the waters. And we taste the waters with people that we know, or with people that we like, or with people that be potential mentors to us, expat mentors, people that moved abroad before and they are living there, other teachers, and we start practicing. We start ask questions. That's also very important. Ask. I would say that for exposure therapy and for dealing with anxiety, asking is the most important thing that we can do. Yeah. And not many people say that. We are used to deal with anxiety when the anxiety is happening. But to prevent it, the more information we have about the country, about the people that we're going to interact with, about the school, if we are going to a school, about the social places that we want to go, we ask all the questions that we have. There are no stupid questions. There are no silly questions. The more information we have, we reduce the anxiety and we can move forward to the teacher or the person that we want to be in this new country, right? So that's one thing. And also within this posture therapy, to have plans, right? Like, what am I going to do? Do I want to go to that place? Okay, I'm really afraid to get lost. We have Google Maps and we have everything, but still, I have clients that they are super tech savvy, but still they are afraid to go to a particular place because they don't want to. So plan ahead the places, how to get to those places, and maybe go to those places before. That's
Yeah.
also sounds very okay, but I'm not a child, I'm an adult. Yes, we are. But if we have pitfalls, if we have bad experiences, that feeds the anxiety, right? So better
Yes.
approach those experiences carefully and with patience to ourselves will definitely prevent more anxiety, right?
Yeah.
What else? Meeting new people. Meeting new people. Yeah.
Meeting new people. Yeah.
um, yes, you can see a lot of people suggesting, okay, go places and start conversations. You're right. But if we have social
Yeah.
anxiety, that's not that easy.
And go to the gym, go join the book club. Yeah.
Exactly. My gold advice for that is start going places that you like, that you enjoy. Like you said, join a book club. Yes, but only if you love reading. Go to a dance class, yes, but only if you like dancing, especially at the beginning. This is not necessarily the time to experiment things, right? If you
Yes.
are dealing with that. If you're not dealing with that, you're an extrovert, yeah, try and taste everything that you want. But if you are self-conscious and if you are fearing things, then start with the safe spaces. You can be brave later, right?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
remember, never forget you, Val, and everyone listening. We are freaking badasses and we are freaking brave and courageous because we already moved abroad. We don't have to
Yeah.
prove to anyone that we are brave and courageous, but because we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's a roller coaster. It's not always being brave and being courageous. Okay. So don't forget that. Going back to the advice, doing something that we love and we feel safe, and then we will meet people that have the same hobby or the same passion, and we can bond through that. We don't have to think 10 minutes or 30 minutes, what do I say? What can we talk about? But we can talk about that book or about that dance class or about that knitting. That's also important.
Yes, not everyone reacts in the same way. Not everyone
Yeah.
feels confident in the same space. So, as you said, don't try new stuff at first. Just go with the things you like, and then you'll see from there. And also anticipate. I was thinking, anticipate what you might have to say.
Yeah.
Think about what you might have to say, how people might react, how you might react, things that can get you over that fear of well, being there for the first time, for example.
Mm-hmm. 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 Remind me, please, to give your audience also advice to identify signs of anxiety. Okay. But before that, I want to say something else about approaching social anxiety. I think I mentioned that before, but I want to stress it and underline it. Find mentors, find people with more experience living abroad around you. Join Facebook groups. That's always a good idea, not because you want to attend everything or you follow the advice of everyone, but you can contact people individually. Like if you have a good feeling as much as you can through social media, but if you have a good feeling about that person or that person gave advice that is not for you, but you think is, oh, that's really clever, I can talk with her directly, DM her or him, and ask him, her, oh, what did you do? How did you survive? Or what things would you recommend me to, that kind of approach
Yeah,
is also very helpful and also very healing because when we talk one-on-one, we start to realize, oh, that these people were also struggling when they just moved, right? Because we tend to compare ourselves. And
yeah,
we present in social media, we know that, Val, is not necessarily, I mean, it's not a lie, but it's not the whole truth, right?
yeah.
So when you interact with people one-on-one, you discover and you feeling not lonely, feeling validated, it's also a very good place to heal and to fight and to cope with social anxiety.
So you were telling me about how to identify signs of anxiety.
Because I told you at the beginning that anxiety is not only panic attacks and medication, right? Or going to a psychiatrist. And it's not only heavy breathing or increasing heart rate, it is also, or sweaty
It's
palms.
also sweating
Yeah, it is
and wanting
also
to run away.
associated with fear, right? But also, and this is very important, not sleeping well, okay? Either waking up in the middle of the night or not being able to fall asleep or waking up very, very, very tired, as if you didn't rest at all through the night. That is very red flaggy for anxiety, right? And we don't pay attention to sleep. I had in BES yesterday, we met a couple of members, and one of them was telling me, I can't sleep, but I function the next day, so I don't pay much attention to it. And she was actually showing some other symptoms of anxiety. But that one was completely neglected because she could function the next day. So, yeah, it's not that bad. Okay,
Mm,
that's
yeah.
very, very important to bear in mind. Also, irritability. When we feel on edge, when we jump with any stimuli or thing that might be a source of anger and we jump on it and it invades emotionality, that's also a sign of anxiety. And the third one, that's there is a lot of talk about ADHD right now, and that's fine. I have experience with ADHD, not personally, but with patients, with clients, and many people think they have ADHD, but they don't. They are anxious because
Mm-hmm.
troubles concentrating or focusing, it's the top 5 sign of anxiety. So we shift our focus to I will try
Yeah.
something, but the underlying anxiety is not addressed. And that's also very important to bear in mind. Anxiety is a pandemic among people between 25 and 45, especially both the vulnerability of living abroad exacerbates that danger or that risk. So try to focus on that first. People that misdiagnose themselves, they don't tackle the bottom line. They don't
The
tackle
real
the
problem. Yeah.
source. Exactly. So that's also important. Yeah.
We discussed a bit about what social anxiety is and how it can manifest when we move abroad.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed a bit of signs we should identify
Mm-hmm.
in order to know if we have this or not. And we also discussed a bit about what we can do in order
Mm-hmm.
to get over it or deal with it and
Mm-hmm.
live with it
Mm-hmm.
and maybe try not to have it. Is there anything you'd like to add here about social anxiety?
Yes, something very, very important. And I was actually discussing this yesterday with another client. She's struggling with weight loss. Okay. Yeah, bear with me. And she hates exercising. Like she wants to do it when she wants to do it and not with a schedule, not going to the gym, etc. So we started talking, and actually, she needs to exercise, not because she has weight problems, but because she's super stressed. So we reframe that so that she actually
Yeah.
goes to the gym to release stress. All that prologue to explain that physical movement is the the thing to do when we feel anxious. And physical movement can involve going to the gym, can involve run, it can involve a super fancy exercise, or it can be go to a fast walk, fast and determined walk for 20 minutes every day. Against anxiety equals movement, systematic and sustained movement. You know what I mean? It's like schedule every day 20 minutes my angry walk. I actually prescribe my clients angry walks or anxious walks. Not that they get anxious when they're walking, but like focusing on the anxiety and giving room to that anxiety. We have to make another episode about that, about tackling with emotions. That's another story. But being very aware and not avoiding anxiety. Oh, that's also very important. And that's also that something that people don't say enough. What happens when we feel anxious? We want to stop feeling anxious, of course. Of course,
Yeah.
who wants to feel anxious, right? So we breathe and we meditate and we move, and that's wonderful. But the thing is, the source of anxiety remains. So if
Yes.
we avoid anxiety, we avoid the problem. Do you know what I mean? It sounds counterintuitive, and it is counterintuitive because we want to run away. We want to la la la. We want to do nice things and forget that source of anxiety or those sources of anxiety. And another thing that it's super important, I always say everything is super important, but this is very important.
I do
Give
the same. I do the same. when I talk.
or give room to the anxiety. Allow yourself to feel the anxiety. Why? No, I don't want to. Yes, please try to, because we are anxious for a reason. We feel anxious for a reason. And the more we give room to the anxiety gives us information about what we have to change, or behaviors, or the things that we are doing or not doing. The anxiety is telling us, okay, change, hello, I want you to feel better. I want you to feel safer. I want you to feel happier. Don't do this, or tackle this, or address this problem, you know?
Yes.
So it, like, in a way, befriend your anxiety. It's pivotal to heal, and pivotal to face it is listening to it. What does the anxiety has to say, and how can I change or address or tackle those sources of anxiety?
I hope our listeners, especially the ones who want to move abroad or who've just moved abroad or who have been abroad for some time, have understood a bit more about what they're feeling or what they might be feeling and how they can deal with everything. Now, my last question is related to anxiety, not really social anxiety moving
Mm-hmm.
abroad.
Mm-hmm.
It's anxiety in the classroom when you're a newly qualified teacher.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode I did was on teacher as an actor, meaning that they need to be able to control their feelings when they start teaching, especially teachers who are at the beginning. I
Uh-huh.
always say that students smell fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you're not very confident on your knowledge, on your teaching,
Mm-hmm.
then they are going to see this and not trust you. I tell teachers to leave their feelings and their problems at the door,
Mm-hmm.
because they need to set an example. They need to be able to control the classroom and so on. How can people who they know the language, they know their techniques, they kind of know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
how can they not be afraid of showing who they are and being themselves in front of others?
Yeah. Yeah. I took a breath because you said that, like, how can they not be afraid? Right? Forget it. We are always going to be afraid. And the sooner we get this, the easier it gets, and we get less and less afraid, or not even that, we get better at managing it, right? The expectation of not having fear, or not having anxiety, or not having self-consciousness is so big that when we start feeling fear or anxious or self-consciousness, apart from that, we start to punish ourselves. Oh, again, I'm feeling fear. I have all these things and I can't. I'm useless. I'm not enough. I can't do this, right? So we are not only
Yes.
feeling fear or anxious or whatever we're feeling that's quote unquote negative. We start to punish ourselves because we're feeling that, right? I think it's important to put an asterisk on that. And instead of focusing on what we are feeling or not feeling, start doing. And that's also related to exposure therapy that I mentioned earlier. So I am afraid. Give room to that fear. Give it room. Like, okay, I am fearful. I feel it in my palms. I feel it in my head. I feel it in my chest because my heart is. What am I going to do about it? I have the tools. So I will start and approach the classroom and maybe say, I'm nervous, acknowledging the nervousness or the fear, phrasing it as fear, but I'm nervous, bear with me, make jokes, whatever personality you have, but not trying to hide it. Because especially children, they know. And their little
Yeah.
brats, sometimes they use it to their advantage, right?
Yes, yes.
So
I'm actually one of those teachers who is quite afraid of teaching little children. That's why I specialized a lot in teaching adults. However, when I had my school back in Romania, we also had kids, and sometimes
Mhm,
I had to teach. And the youngest kids I worked with were 3. And
mhm,
I planned this great lesson, and I took out some of the props we had and toys and everything, and it was chaos. They beat me with a sword. I didn't know at that moment how to raise them and do everything.
mhm,
I learned afterwards because I said, there's a problem. We
mhm,
have to do something. But that experience has made me really be afraid of teaching them, because something might go wrong. I might not be able to control this classroom. They're not going to be listening to me. And once they realize you're afraid, as I was saying in one of my podcast episodes, they smell fear, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and exactly. And once they realize you're afraid, even though you are covering it, trying to hide it, they will. So it's better to either address it or either like not like I'm afraid, but I don't know, put it out there. You know what I mean? Because if you're honest with them, again, not putting yourself in a lower position than them, but acknowledging that you're nervous or you don't know what to do. I don't know. It depends on, I'm not a teacher. But what I know is that more we hide it and the more we try not to hide it, the more we try to hide it, the more it shows. Especially in those panic moments. It's like, oh no, I'm going to lose control. They know it, and we try to, but it's almost unhideable. So that would be my main advice. Try to give room to that. And as you mentioned before, have action steps. Okay, if that happens, if I lose control, I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm going to call the principal or whatever, or I'm going to ask the other kids for help, like to find allies among the classroom. Things like that. You know better than me. But don't fight the fear. Don't fight it. Acknowledge it and plan strategies when you are afraid. No, if you are afraid. When you are afraid, when you're anxious, you do this and this and this. You breathe and you focus your attention on something and you go and read that book to the classroom, whatever. Have a plan, have a backup plan, but don't waste energy and mental resources to hide something that it shows anyway. You know?
Yes. So thank you for everything. It's been lovely talking to you. And if our listeners would like to get more advice and be in a community that's supportive, they're going to find a button to join BES. Okay.
That was fun. It was also very helpful for me to have like a glimpse of what happens in the teacher's world. And also people can contact me for counseling. They can find me in the website that you're going to put also in the notes for the podcast. And they can reach out with questions or with anything. And the last message is you are not alone. They are not alone. Moving abroad is freaking scary. It's wonderful, but also challenging. Don't ever forget that. That will be my message.
Thank you. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Val.